My 24 aunt, 44F, thinks the story of how my fiancé and I met is gross and inappropriate. So on my 24F's 18th birthday, I went to a bar with a few friends. Whilst there, we saw my now fiancé, Josh, who was 21 at the time. He had just been dismissed. Is that the right word? Edit. Discharged from the army and was celebrating his newfound freedom. He was flirting with my friend and I swooped in to help her, and Josh started to flirt with me. I wasn't looking for a hookup or relationship, so brushed his advances off. But he wouldn't back down. He flashed us, pulled up his shirt to show his abs, and he kissed me NC, resulting in him getting kicked out. The next year on my 19th birthday, a friend invited me out to meet some of his old uni buddies. And Josh, 22 at the time, was there. He instantly recognized me and pulled me aside and apologized profusely. He said he was on hard drugs and doesn't actually remember what happened that night and only knows through his friends' choppy accounts. Well, we ended up talking and got quite close and started to date. He proposed to me 6 months ago and our wedding is in August 2022. We announced the wedding at a family gathering, but have had talks in smaller groups since then. My aunt thinks the story of how we met is grossly predatory and inappropriate, and sets a bad precedent for young boys. The fact he wouldn't back down and kissed me without she said I should make something up so it's more appropriate for today's time. We both have different views and she always pulls the "I'm older than you and therefore wiser" card. She has openly said she has no respect for Josh and will not come to my wedding. How do I get her to understand we're in a happy and loving relationship? Is it a lost cause? Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other PPL who hear that story also think it's gross or at least a bit weird, but they just keep their opinion to themselves. He was on drugs and hitting on multiple women until kissing me without consent and getting kicked out isn't a cute tale. If my friend came to me and said, "Hey, you remember the guy who hit on you and me last year that also non-con kissed me?" Well, he apologized cause it turns out he was on hard drugs. So now we're dating. I would have smacked her silly. Unless you want people to judge the shit out of your man, you might want to keep this to yourself. In a silo. She's absolutely right. You didn't just fall for him then and there though. You accepted the situation for what it was. And probably thought he was a douche. Fast forward a year and he's seemingly a different person and he apologized. You've subsequently been together for what? 5 years now? Unless he's crossed any boundaries. We'd like to believe he's not the same person. And we'd like to assume you're in a good and healthy relationship. If that's the case, just state as much. This is the problem with disclosing issues with family. They'll focus on it, and it's not as easy for them to forgive. At the end of the day though, it's your life. If you're happy and not overlooking any red flags, she should be supportive of you and your life. If she's not, it's really her problem. Good luck. Edit. I would add that you should really stop telling that story. It's funny to you in hindsight, I imagine. To a lot of people, they're going to receive it as, haha, let me tell you the story of how when I met my boyfriend, he harassed me and kissed me without my consent. We met at a bar, will suffice. If you don't want other people to think your fiancé as a creep, you probably shouldn't tell that full story. It's great that he's changed and all, but he comes off really poorly and it would certainly color how I saw him if I heard the full story. Read the room. If it's not a flattering story, why tell it? You're not in a court of law. You don't have to tell the truth. The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. I mean, she's 100% right about how you met, but it's not up to her what story you tell people. I'd just say, we first met in a bar and then again a year later at a party, leave out the rapey bits. I mean, she's not wrong. He was hitting on your friend and then he kissed you without your consent and then it turns out he was on some hard drugs. Not exactly romantic, is it? Maybe. Just tell people you met at that party instead of the backstory? You can't really make that situation look good no matter how much you try, but the bottom line is, you're adult. You have made your choice, and if she wants to be a part of your life, she either needs to get on board or you move on away from her. There is so much about this story that makes no sense. First off, for him to have been discharged from the army at 21, he would have had to start there before he became 18, as the usual stay is 4 years. Sometimes more. Also, this guy that was just randomly at the same bar as Op and her friend also just so coincidentally happens to turn out be an old uni buddy of a friend. How did he do that if he was in the army? Also, a friend had also coincidentally showed him Op's Instagram? For some strange reason that Op has never bothered to figure out. Even though this is a guy that had been a creep towards her and her friend. Yeah, this is clearly fake. How could he instantly recognize you and then claim he doesn't remember what happened that night, but knows enough that he needs to profusely apologize to you? That doesn't make sense at all. Not every story has to be told. I'd keep it vague as to how you met when asked. No one cares that much anyway. Yeah, he comes off pretty terrible in that story. And I'm not saying your aunt knows your relationship better than you do, but her concerns are valid. She ain't wrong, girl. If perception matters to you, then this is not a story you should be sharing. I'm wondering, how does your fiancé even feel about you telling that story? It paints HIK in a bad, predatory light of drug abuse and creepy advances. And sounds like it's you patting yourself on the back for giving him another chance. Just a question. If he was on hard drugs that night and doesn't remember anything except for the choppy account his buddy gave him, how did he instantly recognize you a year later? The story is indeed strange. 99% of the times things would have turned out bad getting involved with a guy who kissed you without consent, was on hard drugs, etc. You got very lucky. But by telling the story like it is something fun sounds like you applaud such behavior, and it is indeed a terrible message to send to young boys. Just say you met in a bar. He flirted with you. Saw him 1 year later and he remembered you. Yeah, she's right. That does sound pretty gross and predatory. We met at my 18th birthday. He fancied me, but I wasn't bothered. We met again at my 19th and he remembered me and we got together then. Nobody needs all the gories. Save them for your diary. I'm probably going to come off as an asshole. But I think no consent shouldn't be abbreviated. If it's happening so much you start to short code those words, that's fucked up. And to trivialize it with an abbreviation feels gross. Maybe it's just me. But for me, I don't think that's a great way to advance communication. But she's right though, skull. Not everything that happens within a relationship is meant to be shared. Took a long time to learn that, but man, it makes life easier once you do. Congrats to you too, but omit the beginning of the story to family, strangers. They're not going to get it, and it's none of their business anyways.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.